Yeah, I wanna pivot now, Charlie, to get your opinion a little bit on the issue of gun control. Will House Republicans let this get to the floor?
I think that there will be something debated on the floor, and I think, again, it's going to be a situation where the president and the Senate are the leaders on the issue and that they're pushing something, and the Senate will pass something. I believe there are bipartisan agreements coming together in both chambers. I think there will be a Senate bill that will have been passed, and I think it will put enormous pressure on the House Republican leadership to bring something up. And I think, again, that Speaker John Boehner is going to be in a position where he has to let the House work its will. And we'll see at that point whether there's a majority, but there very well might be a majority there. You have to remember here that the National Rifle Association is very, very good at playing grassroots politics, at mobilizing conservative activists, and really at putting together a supportive coalition across the conservative movement. So it's going to be very difficult, and they can put a lot of pressure on probably a majority of House members. But this thing that's coming out of the Senate has the support of Joe Manchin, who is a very pro-gun Democrat from West Virginia. It has the support of Tom Coburn, the very, very conservative Tom Coburn, who is a pro-gun Republican from Oklahoma. So things are starting to change a little bit here, and Newtown kind of changed everything. And people need, the politicians are realizing that there's a huge demand to do something, and I think something is going to happen, but I think it is going to be a very, very tough fight, and I think the NRA should never be underestimated in these kind of things.
Talking with Charlie Mitchell about the possibilities for new gun laws that would restrict access to certain kinds of guns and weapons that have been used in some of these mass shootings. Charlie, obviously the question, though, is if something does happen, what would it look like? And it seems like some of the biggest points of commonality right now is on the issue of background checks. That's where sort of the consensus is building. The president, however, is insisting that whatever the Senate take up include an assault weapons ban, and Harry Reid expressed sort of wariness about that earlier on. What sort of strategy do you think the White House is playing, and what do you think that they're hoping for in terms of the end product here?
Well, they want an assault weapon ban, which we used to have, which was allowed to expire a few years back. They want limits on large ammunition clips, so we see in these mass murders that people are going in and they're able to fire off hundreds and hundreds of rounds. They want some restriction on that, and they make the argument that these magazines were developed for military use. These were never for hunting or civilian use in any manner. So they want some kind of limit put on that. But you're absolutely right. Where the rubber hits the road on this is on the universal background checks. And I don't know what the percentage is, but I do know it's a very large percentage of gun transactions in this country happen between private citizens, private dealers, off the radar of the background check that's part of the law today. So there are tens, hundreds of thousands of gun transactions going on all the time that are beyond scrutiny. And we
in fact,
know
the figure,
that
Charlie, is
criminals
40%.
and bad players and people who are unstable and all of that are getting their hands on guns, and it's coming from somewhere, and this loophole is probably one of the places it's coming from. And this is the thing that the NRA is very much targeting and saying this would be a huge infringement on our rights if private citizens have to, report these transactions for background checks and all of that. But that may be the one element that could make the most difference, and it's going to be the one element that's the most fiercely fought over. But again, we have a little bit of a thaw within the political system where you have Eric Cantor, who has suggested an openness to really toughening up the background check law. So there's a real possibility here.
It's a fascinating dynamic. It's a fascinating dynamic, Charlie. Absolutely, you're right. And there will be a fight with the NRA, but it sounds like there is a thaw within the Republican Party on some of these issues. And from what you're reporting to us, it sounds like Eric Cantor's in the lead. So fascinating stuff. We're going to keep tracking this story in the coming weeks, and we're going to stick around with Charlie Mitchell in the next segment to talk a little bit about some other things that might be thawing in the atmosphere. Talk about climate change legislation and the politics of that in the Senate. Coming up next on Take Action News.